In 2006, Disney's Bob Iger opted to purchase Pixar Animation for $7.4 billion. What nobody would predict is just how profound of an impact that purchase would have been on the Disney company as a whole. The Pixar films continued to be gold, creating a steady stream of money from the box office and merchandise and new theme park additions. But at a time when Disney Animation was in a slump, it was the acquisition of Pixar's leader John Lasseter, which would bring new life to the Disney Animation team as he took over as Chief Creative Officer. When Lasseter came on board, he challenged the Disney team, which resulted in a complete rehash of their film Meet the Robinsons, which resulted in that film's ultimate failure. But with John Lasseter's help, the animation team started to find its groove. One of the key figures of the Disney animation team during its post-Renaissance era was Chris Sanders, the writer and creative mind behind easily their most successful film of that era, Lilo and Stitch. After Stitch, Sanders was tapped for a new project that would become Bolt. Originally titled American Dog, Sanders went to work on an original story and was set to direct the film. For American Dog, a new non-photorealistic rendering technology was used to create the characters, and this tech would go on to be used in other upcoming Disney features. As the film was underway, Lasseter clashed with Chris Sanders on how the story should actually go. After attending screenings and receiving feedback from Lasseter and others from the Pixar team, Sanders resisted, believing that his film was fine as is. And that tension would ultimately cause Chris Sanders to be replaced in his role as director and writer. And he would leave Disney for its rival DreamWorks studio, where he would then begin work on The Croods and How to Train Your Dragon, ultimately becoming a new key figure for DreamWorks Animation. With Chris Sanders gone, the film's title was changed to Bolt, and the film's deadline was cut from 4 years for a typical animated film to 18 months. New directors Byron Howard and Chris Williams would have their directorial debuts with Bolt, and would end up playing major roles in Disney's new revival. Bolt would make its way into the theaters in November of 2008. It debuted at the box office to a lukewarm reception. With a budget of $150 million, the studio was looking to make a real profit. With the new addition of Pixar, the thought was then to add some of the good luck charm that Pixar had by adding a new Cars-themed animated short to the front of the film, starting in its 4th week at theaters. The short Tokyo Mater would help the film make its money back and then some. I know that in previous videos there's been a ton of debate in the comments as to why I personally see this film as part of the revival era and not the post-Renaissance. It all boils down to money. Yes, John Lasseter had a partial hand in Meet the Robinsons, but Bolt feels like his true first hands-on project with Disney Animation. And because of his leadership and the ability of the new animation team to rise up to the challenge, that including Byron Howard and Chris Williams, Bolt would rake in $310 million at the box office, doubling its budget. The success of Bolt was a small step to the studio's new future, but John Lasseter, as well as Pixar's Ed Catmull, were also interested in Disney's past for its next film, The Princess and the Frog. After 2004's Home on the Range, the Disney studio made a commitment to move away from traditional hand-drawn animation and focus solely on computer-generated graphics, laying off many animators. Lasseter reached out to John Musker and Ron Clements, the directors of The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, and Treasure Planet, and asked them to return to the studio to direct a new film based on the Frog Prince story, allowing them to bring back the hand-drawn style as well as the Disney musical formula that had worked so well throughout the 1990s. Musker and Clements thought giving the film an American home rather than setting it in Europe like so many other Disney films would give it a unique look and feel. And setting the film in John Lasseter's favorite city, New Orleans, allowed for a musical tribute to the city as well. At an annual shareholders meeting in 2007, the Frog Prince film was unveiled with details and songs, but it was met with a bit of backlash from the African American community. At that point, the main character's name was Maddie, a close enough resemblance to Mammy, which was seen as a degrading term. She was also a chambermaid and not a server at a restaurant, which brought up images of house slaves. A big question was also brought up about the setting, since Hurricane Katrina had put many Black New Orleans residents in peril. But for better or for worse, some criticisms were ignored while others were taken to heart. Wanting a consultant for the film, Oprah Winfrey was brought in, and she was eventually given a speaking role in the film as the protagonist's mother. A new direction for the character, now named Tiana, was based on restaurateur Leah Chase, who Musker and Clements met in New Orleans while doing research. Known as the Queen of Creole Cuisine, Chase started as a waitress and dreamed of owning her own restaurant, later becoming an author and television chef. With a new name and job for their lead character, the directors felt their story was set, and they could work on the animation. Looking at Disney's past, Lasseter and the directors agreed that the style of Lady and the Tramp felt the most iconic to Disney, and would strive to bring traditional 2D animation back with that film in mind. For the music, longtime Pixar collaborator Randy Newman came in to conduct the score and write the songs for the film. John Lasseter and Disney were excited to bring back traditional animation with a bit of that Pixar good luck, and the film was heavily marketed as The Princess and the Frog. Parades for the theme parks were added, merchandise was being sold long before the film debuted. In fact, Princess Tiana Halloween costumes were selling out prior to the film's release, and a line of hair care products sold out online in less than 7 hours. The buzz for Princess and the Frog was big, but it didn't translate to theatrical success. Costing $105 million to make, the movie would gross only $270 million in November of 2009. This isn't bad by any stretch, but it was no return to form for the directors that had been in charge of some of Disney's biggest films during its renaissance. The result would see a change of heart at Disney as the nail in the coffin was coming down on hand-drawn films. Disney executives, including Ed Catmull, pointed out that it was quite possible The Princess and the Frog was doomed, simply because of its title, as most boys would not want to see a quote-unquote princess movie, keeping a key demographic away from the theaters. Disney Animation would keep that in mind with their next film, Tangled. Originally brought up in 2001 by animator Glenn Keane, a film based on the grim tale of Rapunzel went into production, and by 2003, it was decided that it would be a computer-animated film going by the name Rapunzel Unbraided. Not believing fully in the story, the film was pushed back to a later release and eventually shelved. But one of the first decisions made by Ed Catmull and John Lasseter after coming to Disney was to restart the Rapunzel movie. And when Glenn Keane stepped down from the project due to a heart attack, they put Nathan Greeno and Byron Howard in charge of the movie, with Keane staying on as an executive producer. Longtime Disney songwriter Alan Menken was tapped to create the score and songs for the film. Looking at influences, he wanted to combine Renaissance music with 1960s folk, giving Rapunzel a sort of bohemian feel, a unique sound that had not yet been done for a Disney animated feature. And the addition of songs gave the film the traditional Disney feel of a fairy tale musical, despite being a computer animated movie. The last thing needed was a new name. The Princess and the Frog failed because it was a quote-unquote girl movie, and Disney didn't want that to happen again. The choice in story to make Flynn Rider more of a main character rather than just a generic prince was a big step forward. But as far as marketing was concerned, the name Rapunzel or even Rapunzel Unbraided didn't really inspire boys to come see a new fairy tale. The choice to name the film Tangled was based on being more appealing to a wider range of moviegoers. This new formula of mixing computer animation with a classic fairy tale musical and a title with a larger appeal worked out. Tangled would cost $260 million to make, but would bring in $592 million at the box office. A major success had come to Disney's animation team after combining the ideas of new computer animated films like Bolt and the traditional Disney animated films like Princess and the Frog. Tangled would become the first major success of Disney's new revival, sparking video games, an animated TV show, a new animated short, and critical acclaim stating that Disney's 50th animated film was a great blend of what modern audiences wanted while still delivering classic Disney magic. Speaking of classic Disney magic, the animation team wanted to revive one of Disney's most beloved characters, Winnie the Pooh. A sequel to the 1970s release, The Mini Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, was put into production when the traditional hand-drawn animation team was brought back to the studio. Much of the team that worked on Princess and the Frog worked on Winnie the Pooh. The budget for the film was only $30 million, but it would allow the team to take a trip to England for inspiration. Originally basing the film on 5 of A.A. Milne's stories, the team would work on something fitting of the classic, even incorporating the original Winnie the Pooh theme song. And for the rest of the songs, Robert and Kristen Anderson Lopez, who had worked mostly in children's television, were brought in to create new songs. As the film's budget didn't allow for much wiggle room and a deadline of only 2 years to make the film, 5 stories were cut down to 3, and the film would debut in April of 2011, to pretty positive reviews. But the movie failed to capitalize on the buzz that came from Tangled. Whether it was because many people saw this as a re-release of the original film, or that hand-drawn animation still felt childish, or that it opened alongside the last film in the Harry Potter saga, Winnie the Pooh would only make $50 million, and effectively killed the hopes of reviving the hand-drawn animation renaissance of Disney's past. While the past, unfortunately, was being left behind, Disney was looking to capitalize on the trends of the present, namely video game culture, with its new original computer-animated story, WreckIt Ralph. WreckIt Ralph started as an idea all the way back in the 1980s, but it was finally put into production when director Rich Moore wanted to make the film under Lasseter's new leadership. Moore saw the opportunity to bring in lots of established video game characters, but opted to create original characters for the leads, as to not hurt the mythology and let down a key demographic of the film, gamers. The original script had many cameos written in, even before those characters were licensed to Disney. Overall, Disney would be able to add in 188 cameos through licensing, but the cameos weren't really the only selling point to this movie. A new camera capture system would revolutionize the computer animated films, allowing for reflections on surfaces, realistic smoke and dust, and camera movements created in real time. WreckIt Ralph would be a big step up in computer animation, giving a sleek look to go along with all of those fun cameos. It would be marketed at the 2012 Electronic Entertainment Expo, and commercials for the film highly emphasized the video game characters we'd all seen and loved. Upon its release in November 2012, critics gave it high praise, claiming its tale of friendship and nostalgia was a hit with many generations of boys and girls. The movie would gross $471 million at the box office and would spawn its own set of video games. Ralph would also win Best Animated Feature at the Annie Awards, Hollywood's celebration of animation. This would be the first time that Disney won that award since 1998's Mulan. And the film would go on to be nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, but it wouldn't win. However, that win wouldn't be too far off, as Disney's revival was ramping up to have its biggest success yet. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'm changing studio rooms a little bit, so even though the background is the same, the reverb and echo in this room is a little bit different. Be patient, I'm gonna get that fixed. But if you have not, check out the other videos just over here. You can check out the entire playlist of the Disney eras, or you can check out my history of Kermit the Frog. Love that video. Also make sure to like this video if you did and share it on any platform that you have. Or subscribe to the channel and find us over on Patreon. You can click there. You can also click right up here and you can see everything we've got going on over there, including audio and video stuff, stickers, all kinds of fun stuff. So go check that out. And in the meantime, thank you for watching, my dear friends, and keep on moving.